Before you analyze anything, before your mind starts racing for the right answer, pause for a single breath. Not a dramatic pause, a human one. The kind that happens when you realize you've been tired for a long time, not just in your body, but somewhere deeper, where days blur together and weeks feel like they evaporate. If anxiety has been quietly sitting in your chest, this is not an accident. If you feel chased by time, pressured by expectations, or haunted by the sense that life is always happening somewhere else, this moment is already speaking to you. The pain is real, the confusion is real, and the solution does not begin with thinking harder, but with seeing more clearly. Alan Watts often reminded us that most human suffering is created by our relationship with time, not by time itself. We imagine the future as a threat and the past as a weight, then wonder why the present feels unbearable. So now, without analysis, without comparison, you chose a clock, not randomly, instinctively, and that choice reveals how time is currently living inside you. If you chose clock 1, this message is for the person who feels constantly behind, no matter how much they accomplish. You wake up already late, even on days with no deadlines. There is a subtle panic underneath your productivity, a quiet fear that if you slow down, everything will collapse. You don't rest, you pause with guilt. You don't enjoy progress, you measure it. Time, for you, has become a taskmaster, always tapping its foot, always reminding you of what hasn't been done yet. The story you're living inside says that peace will come after the next goal, after the next milestone, after you finally catch up. But notice the trap. The finish line keeps moving because it was never real to begin with. Watts would say that this is the illusion of time as a ladder, where life is something you climb instead of something you inhabit. Anxiety grows here because the present moment is treated like an obstacle instead of a home. The deeper truth is uncomfortable but freeing. There is nothing you are late for. Life is not waiting to begin once you organize it perfectly. The tension you feel is not because time is scarce, but because attention is divided. You are living half a second ahead of yourself, constantly rehearsing futures that do not exist. The solution is not to abandon ambition, but to remove urgency from your sense of worth. When action comes from presence instead of fear, effort stops feeling like self-punishment and starts feeling like expression. Clock 1 speaks to the person who believes they must earn the right to breathe. But you were never meant to chase time. You were meant to dance with it. And dances are ruined the moment you start counting every step. If this resonated uncomfortably, that's a sign of recognition, not failure. Write this in the comments to anchor it into awareness. I stopped chasing time. And if you want more reflections like this, told without noise and without pressure, subscribe and stay here. Sometimes the most radical act is learning how to arrive where you already are. If your instinct pulled you toward clock 2, you are not fighting time in the obvious way. You are not rushing. You are not panicking. On the surface, you seem calm, even composed. But inside, there is a heavy stillness, a sense of being suspended, as if life has been placed on hold while you wait for clarity, permission, or the right moment to finally begin. Time, for you, is not a tyrant. It is a fog. Alan Watts spoke often about how human beings confuse waiting with wisdom. You tell yourself that you are being cautious, reflective, responsible. But deep down there is a quieter truth. You are afraid of choosing wrong, so you choose nothing. Days pass without resistance, but also without depth. Anxiety here does not scream. It whispers. It sounds like numbness, like the subtle fear that life is happening elsewhere to other people while you observe from a safe distance. Clock 2 belongs to those who feel detached from urgency, but also disconnected from vitality. You don't feel late, but you also don't feel alive. Time feels thick, slow, almost sticky, as if every decision requires enormous emotional effort. You replay old possibilities, imagining alternate paths, wondering who you could have been if circumstances were different. The past becomes a soft prison because it feels more certain than the future. The psychological trap here is the belief that clarity precedes action. But in reality, clarity is often born from movement. Watts would gently dismantle the idea that life is a problem to be solved before it is lived. When you stand still waiting for certainty, time does not stop with you. It simply moves on without your participation, and that absence slowly turns into regret. The solution is not to force boldness or manufacture motivation. It is to understand that hesitation is also a form of resistance to the present moment. Life does not ask you for perfect decisions. It asks you for presence while deciding. The moment you step into experience, even imperfectly, time stops feeling like a blur and starts feeling like a flow again. Clock 2 is calling you back into motion, not frantic motion, but honest engagement, the kind where you allow yourself to be changed by what you do, instead of waiting to feel ready first. You are not stuck because time is unclear. You are stuck because you are trying to observe life instead of participate in it. If this feels uncomfortably accurate, anchor it with intention. Write this in the comments. I choose to move with life. And if these reflections are helping you see yourself more clearly, subscribe and stay. Sometimes anxiety dissolves not when answers appear, but when you finally step back into the current you've been watching from the shore. If you were drawn to clock 3, time does not feel slow or fast to you. It feels fractured. Your days are filled, sometimes overflowing yet strangely empty. You are doing many things, often for many people, but there is a persistent sense that none of it is fully yours. You move from task to task, role to role, conversation to conversation, rarely stopping long enough to feel where you actually are. Anxiety here is not about delay or hesitation, it is about dispersion. Alan Watts described this state as living as a function rather than as a being. You experience time as a sequence of obligations, not moments. Each hour is defined by what it demands from you, not by what it offers. Even rest becomes another item on the schedule, something to optimize, manage, and justify. And so the mind never truly settles. It is always partially elsewhere. Clock 3 speaks to the person who feels constantly on, yet rarely present. You may be praised for reliability, efficiency, or productivity, but inside there is a quiet exhaustion that sleep does not cure. The deeper pain is not tiredness. It is the feeling of being replaceable in your own life. When time is divided into fragments, the self begins to fragment as well. The illusion here is subtle and powerful, the belief that meaning is created by accumulation, more achievements, more connections, more experiences. But meaning does not multiply through quantity. It emerges through depth. Watts would say that when you treat time as something to be filled, you lose the capacity to inhabit it. Anxiety grows because nothing ever feels finished, complete, or whole. The solution is not to do less out of rebellion, nor to abandon responsibility. It is to reunite attention, to allow one moment to be enough. When presence is restored, time stops feeling like a series of interruptions and starts feeling like continuity again. You are no longer scattered across obligations. You are gathered into experience. Clock 3 is an invitation to stop living as a response mechanism and return to authorship. To let at least one part of your day belong entirely to you, not as an escape, but as an anchor. When attention becomes whole, anxiety loses its grip, because there is finally somewhere solid to stand. If this description felt uncomfortably familiar, make it conscious. Write this in the comments. I return to the present. And if these reflections are helping you reconnect with yourself, subscribe and stay. Sometimes peace doesn't come from fixing time, but from finally inhabiting it. If your attention settled on clock 4, time does not feel like pressure, fog, or fragmentation. It feels heavy with meaning. You are deeply aware of impermanence. You sense, sometimes painfully, that moments pass only once, that people change, that opportunities do not wait politely. This awareness has given you depth, but it has also given you a quiet sorrow. Anxiety here is existential. It is the fear of wasting life itself. Alan Watts often spoke to those who felt this weight most strongly, reminding them that the pain of impermanence is inseparable from the beauty of existence. You feel time intensely because you are alive to it. You notice endings before others do. You sense the fragility beneath ordinary conversations. And because of that, you sometimes withdraw, overwhelmed by the responsibility of living correctly, of making life meaningful enough to justify its passing. Clock 4 belongs to the person who asks big questions in silence. Am I using my time well? Am I becoming who I was meant to be? Will this matter in the end? These questions are not shallow, but when carried without grounding, they turn into anxiety. You start measuring moments by their significance instead of their presence. Joy becomes conditional. Rest feels undeserved unless it serves a higher purpose. The illusion here is the belief that life is a performance to be evaluated after the curtain falls. Watts would gently dismantle this by reminding you that meaning is not something added to life later. It is something revealed when you stop standing outside the moment and judging it. A sunset does not justify itself. A laugh does not need a legacy. They are complete because they are fully experienced. The solution is not to abandon reflection or depth, but to release the burden of cosmic accounting. Life does not ask you to make every moment important. It asks you to be fully present for the moments that come. When you stop demanding permanence from what is temporary, anxiety softens into reverence. Time no longer feels like something slipping through your fingers. It feels like something passing through you. Clock 4 is an invitation to trust life enough to participate without constantly evaluating it, to allow moments to be what they are instead of what they should mean. When you do that, time stops feeling tragic and starts feeling sacred. If this spoke directly to you, seal it with awareness. Write this in the comments. I allow life to pass through me. And if you want to keep exploring these deeper layers of mind, time, and anxiety, subscribe and stay. Sometimes peace is not found by controlling time, but by finally making peace with its passing.